I am sitting down with my new friend,
Brand
FJ.
new.
Hello.
Hello.
What brings you to Comic-Con this year?
At this point, it's so in my DNA that I have to be here. It's gotten to a point where the majority of my adult life I've come here, and even if I'm just here for a day like I am today, I can't miss it. It's still the Super Bowl for us nerds. So I'm happy to be here.
Do you remember when your first one was?
Yeah, I remember the first one. It was 2001, 2, and it was pre-Hall H. And
What do you mean pre-Hall H?
They hadn't built it yet. It wasn't even built yet.
Okay.
So the first year was 2005, 4 or 5, and I was working on a movie called Constantine. I was the junior guy. And that was the first year they had Hall H. And I remember standing with my boss, who's the producer of the movie, and just while the footage was playing, we just watched. There were 6,000 people in the room. You'd never seen anything like that before. And I was like, this whole thing's changed. It's great. And but yeah, this is probably with the exception of the COVID ones, I think I'm over 20 of these in my life. So I'm old now at this point.
In addition to Hall H, what else has changed? There's a lot of people talk about the year that everything changed.
The year that everything changed was the year Twilight, Tron, Kick-Ass, Avatar, or all in Hall H on the same day, which was just and that was the year, especially Twilight, was the year people started camping out at Hall H. Like before that, you could show, like, I'm a big Star Wars guy, and this is before when they were still doing the Star Wars prequels. You could show up at a panel like 10 minutes into it and sneak in the back of Hall H and just sit and watch it. And then after that year, that completely changed, and it became a fortress.
Wow.
Where kids would wait, especially with the Marvel stuff, kids would start to wait outside. But Twilight was the first thing that changed everything. So whatever year that was,
right?
It was wild.
Yeah. And you, FJ, are a creator, a comic book guy. You have been in this industry for a long time.
Yes, that's what all the gray hair is for.
What do you think is the coolest thing that's happens at San Diego Comic-Con?
I think it's all cool. I mean, I think the ability. I'm in a fortunate position. Everybody here is in a fortunate position of, hey, we're in the industry. We get to go, get a free badge, et cetera. But when you really sit down and think about it, and like people who spend their hard-earned money to come here, to travel here, et cetera, and really just because it's an enjoyment of many different things, whether you're into comics, games, anime, Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, doesn't matter. It's the one time everything converges, and it's just a universal celebration of everything. And I think that for me is the fun part. It's fun seeing kids, dressed up and stuff like that. Like, you always have to remember, like, I've been very fortunate to come here my whole adult life for work, but you remember that part before when I was a kid, that if you could tell yourself when you're a kid that, hey, when you're a grown-up, you get to go to this thing and you have a pro badge and all this stuff, and you get to walk around the floor and meet all these cool people and see all these cool things, I never would have believed it.
That's amazing, because it really is a celebration of whatever you're a fan of.
Yeah.
And you are essentially a professional fan.
My whole career has been working on the things that I loved as kids, whether it's Transformers, whether it's, writing comics, et cetera. Like, I work for a company now called Vault Comics, which is an independent publisher, and it's just amazing watching what they're doing in comic books, and and my job is to sort of turn those into movies and TV show. We had a TV show, unfortunately during COVID, called Vagrant Queen, which was a real achievement on Sci-Fi Channel. And the last couple of years I did 2 shows for Netflix. I did Transformers War for Cybertron, which wrapped up about a year and a half ago. It's 3 seasons of that you should check out. And then also I did a show called Tekken Bloodline, which was an anime I did for Netflix. It came out last year. And then, we just announced a bunch of stuff we're developing for Vault in the film and TV space. But definitely check out Vault, because they do the best in sort of sci-fi, horror, all different kinds of genre, and it's just the best books. And each one of these things I get to do are all part of that little celebration. You get to have that little imprint in that world that you grew up loving. Whether, like I said, when I worked on Transformers, it's like I was part of something, and I think that's, a larger version of that is this here where everybody gets to be part of something. And whether there's a fan, as a professional, et cetera. Like, a lot of my contemporaries still love it as a show. Mm-hmm. They'll come here early, they'll leave on Monday, et cetera, because they just love it. And I think that's the fun part is, what news is going to happen. We're speculating on what Marvel's going to talk about, or Star Trek, what new Star Trek stuff's going to happen, et cetera, or what exclusives are going to be sold. Like, you still remember that sort of thing, and I think that's the fun of it, and we're just all lucky to be here.
Yeah. Let's talk about Transformers for a second.
Okay.
Specifically, the action figures. I would love to know, what is your first action figure?
My first Transformer action figure in general?
Yes.
Oh, so they were probably, and I'm going to date myself really badly here, they were probably the Mego, DC, and Star Trek figures, because I'm lucky to remember a world very, very briefly where Star Wars didn't exist yet. So when Star Wars came out, I was like 4 or 5 years old. So I was obsessed with DC Comics in particular and Star Trek. And my first, now they remake them and stuff like that. But those original, Mego, larger Star Trek and DC stuff, Batman in particular, Robin. Robin's my ultimate favorite comic book character. Robin, Nightwing, Dick Grayson. But those were my first figures. And then, then I eventually got into, obviously Star Wars and then G.I. Joe and Transformers and stuff like that.
What was your first Transformer?
My first Transformer, I believe, was Soundwave.
Okay. What is a action figure you always wanted but never got?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think there is one. I mean, I think.
Whoa,
No,
whoa.
it sounds really. I know,
What a spoiled child
No,
you were.
I was lucky. No, I think I can't think of one I don't have. In my adult life, I just literally, there was a certain point, especially when the Star Wars prequels came out, where up until that point I was buying everything Star Wars, right, for like my entire life. And then I sat there at a certain point and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't afford this anymore. And then I made a decision to just buy things that were of sentimental value. So that usually is in the range of, it's either a Han Solo figure, or it's a Nightwing figure, or statue, or something like that. And that's sort of my starting point of where I am now. But, I'm sure there's like something that I didn't get, but like I was lucky. I had a mom who was very supportive of these things and sort of saw it as a challenge. She'd always find the action figures and stuff like that.
Wow.
My all-time favorite action figure is Han Solo from Empire Strikes Back in the jacket and the brown pants. And that is literally my all-time favorite action figure. So that's with me wherever I go. And I've actually looked into buying like a carded version of it, but it's like so much money.
Are you a action figures must stay in the box type of guy?
No. I am now. As a kid, I wasn't like, I was the weird age where like nobody realized like put the comics in the bags and keep it in the box and be worth it. I didn't give a shit. I just would play with everything. So, like, I have all these great comics and stuff like that that are probably worth a lot of money, but they're all in terrible shape because I read them to death. Like, I put them in boxes and bags and stuff, but like, I didn't care. Like, I didn't sit there and go, this is going to be worth something someday. I was just like, no, I'm going to read this for the rest of my life. Right? Like, that's literally, and that was the same thing with action figures. Now, if I get something like I love what McFarlane's doing with the DC stuff, so he resurrected the superpower stuff. So he's doing all the characters they never did. So I'll buy some of those, and I have to hide those in the office, though. I can't. I have too much. No more room at home.
What is the last action figure you bought?
The Superpowers Nightwing a couple of months ago. They've done a couple of Nightwings, and I've been buying those. And Flashpoint Batman was part of that. I bought them all at once.
Your fandom is all over the place. What would you say is your core fandom?
The core fandom, Star Wars. The pillars, there are pillars, which is DC, in particular Batman, Nightwing, Dick Grayson.
Great.
That's my pillar. Star Wars, Star Trek, and then like weirdly Transformers came later because it was the way it laid out, and then eventually I fell back into Transformers when I worked on it.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, this is great. Thank you for having me.